Hi, it's Kylie Coo. Welcome to my studio and welcome to part 7 of my 52-week spiral scroll project. So if all goes according to plan, this video will be up on Wednesday the 19th, give or take a day, and part 8 will be up the weekend of the 22nd, 23rd, and that should be me back up to date and on track with the weekly videos. But I do plan to do a couple of interim videos after that. So on the 26th, I've decided that I'm not going to attach all of these at the moment. Sometimes these cards can take, overnight to dry, where I've got thick gesso, this case thick ink, and therefore I'm not getting them attached and up in the video, especially during this time when I'm trying to get things up and get back on track. So I'm going to do a video where I'll show you me attaching several of them at once. Then on the 5th, I think it'll be the 5th of March, which will be a Wednesday as well. Of course, in between time, there'll have been part 9. But I will show you how I do the backs of this as well. So there'll be a video, show me doing one, maybe more of that. Once I get back onto the regular schedule, I then will be able to hopefully put up some different content on other projects. But life changes, things change, so we'll just go with the flow. The other thing I wanted to mention today is I have started to coax my scroll into the kind of spiral shape. So I've just been doing this kind of gently. I'd left for a little while. I didn't start to do this because I was leaving it flat so that I'd be able to do the back, but I reckon I can still do that anyway. But just over the last few days, I've started to just gently roll it. I'm not rolling it tight, just a gentle roll, because I know some of you will be wondering about this, especially given this is quite thick paper, so just gently rolling it. I'm not putting an elastic band round it because I'm kind of concerned that on the edge that might start to tear into it if it's too tight. Just got a little bit of twine, and then all I did was to put that in a very simple bow and let that sit. And it's actually amazing how quickly it started to take on the shape. Now again, once I get back on course, I'm going to talk a bit more about what this might attach to, because I've got various ideas. However, I probably won't do the attaching until the end of the project because I don't want to hem myself in or then find that the scroll is difficult to work with. So this point, I will now change over to a voiceover. I hope that's all clear. If not, please feel free to ask any questions below. I am also hoping to get caught up with comments in the next few days. Okay, so most of my pages, cards, whatever you want to call them so far, have been quite grungy. And this week I decided that what I would try and do is just kind of brighten things up a bit, still have a grungy feel, but just a little bit brighter. But I had an idea for something else as well. So I've just taken a basic sketching pencil and I'm just drawing a very rough circle in the middle of that. Now I'm going to put some ink over it. This is a Daler Rowney System 3 acrylic in cadmium orange, and it's a very, very bright colour. I really like it. I've said before, orange is my favourite colour, although I'll often mute it down with sepia, for example. So I'm just going to take a brush and spread that out. This particular ink is quite opaque, so I am going to add a little bit of water just to dilute it a little bit, because I do like some of the kind of marks on the background just to show through a bit. So yeah, just spreading that out across the entirety of the card, and I can still see, roughly see anyway, the circle that I drew. Just covering the little white bits there. So I laid that face down, and that just kind of distresses the look of the ink a little bit, so it's not a full and even coat. I'm going back on, just using what was on my brush. I put that down again, and again, you know, this is just to give it a slightly grungy, distressed look. Now I'm going to move on to another ink, making sure I put the cap on that one, because otherwise I'm likely to knock it over. So again, this is a Daler Rowney FW, and this is called Waterfall Green, and it's a pearlescent ink. I've used this a few times in the past, so I needed to give that a shake. The fact it was pearlescent, you know, I gave it a good shake, just putting a little bit onto my work surface, wiping the excess off the orange, sprayed a little bit of water on it, and basically I'm just going to do lots of splatters now. I just thought that these two colours would work well together. Decided it was probably too diluted, so put a bit more on, and of course it did absorb into the paper in the back a little bit. So now that's better. A few bigger splatters, and I'm really going to give this a very good coat of splatterings, if that's even a phrase. Just having a look, turning it sideways, just to get the splatters going in a slightly different direction. And I'm liking those two colours together, but I don't want to leave it at that, but I do give it a dry at this stage. So brought out some colour pencils here. So here I've got the bluish turquoise. I think I used this last week, really like it. And this is the dark indigo. Should focus in just a second. Come on, there we go, dark indigo. And of course dark sepia. These are all the polychromos, I think. And I'm just going to work with these. I think this is the sepia. Just going to go around the edges with this. Not doing too much detail. I do sometimes like the edge of cards to have a bit of darkness to them. I just think it helps frame everything. Again, just a little bit of a kind of scumbling effect, just drawing very loose little circles. It's just a good way to get it to fill in, slightly different to just doing kind of up and down strokes or across strokes. Not doing it everywhere, just going here and there, sometimes a bit looser, sometimes a bit more intense. And as I said, I think last week, I really enjoy using colour pencils on mixed media. And I would use these on top of watercolours as well. They go great on top of watercolours. So you see there, it's picking up some of the texture underneath. You know, it's when you go over it, you can feel it being a little bit bumpy. And because I'm quite light over the top of it, it's not going on too dark, but you can just see it. Just looking round the card, looking at where I think it would benefit from some of this. No right, no wrong, just how I feel on the day. Other days I would maybe approach it differently. Taking it more into the middle of the card, feeling that it needed a little bit. But again, just very lightly. Now the bluish turquoise. I'm sorry, I'm slightly out of shot there. There I come down. And again, just very little light strokes. Holding the pencil on its side a bit, and it just sometimes gives a slightly different effect depending on how sharp or blunt the pencil is. So I've now got this FW again in shimmering blue, so you know, you'll see there the bottom of it, a lot of the kind of shimmer particles are at the bottom, so that needed to have a really good shake, and that's what I'm doing off camera at the moment. Again, just wiping any excess off my paintbrush. You know, a lot of the time I don't bother to actually clean my paintbrush off. So just a few drops of this and you'll see that this changes it quite significantly. And again, because I've used this particular ink before, I know what it's going to do. So it's going to look very pink here, but you'll see, hopefully you'll see, because later on I'm holding it up to the camera, moving it about, and you'll see, depending on how the light hits it, it will react differently. Again, putting it down, just giving it a little rub, and I'll take a bit of a paper towel that just lifts some of it off, so it knocks it back from that very bright pink. Adding a little bit of water there, I'll take a bit of paper and I'll just go gently over it. I don't want to lift it all off. It's more just about knocking it back a tiny bit. Dabbing it mainly to begin with, and then you'll see I just rub it a little bit. So as I say, this week I really just wanted to try and lift the colour on things a bit, because everything has been very grungy up to now, and you'll see how that changes it depending on the way that the light hits it. Now, of course, as I've also said before, I'm not a pink person, so when I see pink I kind of think, oh my goodness, what have I done? But actually I really do like it, and I think it will go nice within the scroll, just as something that is that little bit different. So I've now got this swivel knife, and where I drew that rough circle, I was just trying to show you there that the point of this actually moves a bit. I did an artist book a while back where I cut out very detailed roots. If I remember, I'll try and link it. I think it took me a couple of hours to do all the cutting, but this tool served me well. So I'm not trying to make this a perfect circle. I'm just going roughly round where I'd drawn it. I'm not going in too hard to begin with, almost just scoring the paper and then going back a bit. But I am going to jump forward now because, you know, cutting is cutting. So here I am, just on that final little bit. I just took my time with this, didn't want to rush it, didn't want to yank it out and then rip it. You see one or two rough edges, but that's okay, I'll be tidying them later. Now, I'm not looking to put this back in the exact same, and in fact, I'm going to cut another circle within this. I want the outer edge to be quite thin, so it's maybe not much more, I don't know, maybe a millimetre in places, a couple of millimetres probably, so maybe about 1/8 of an inch or something, 2/8 at most. 2/8 is 2/8. No, I think that is wrong, is it? Anyway. No, 2/8 doesn't make a quarter, so there I am. I'm trying to work out 1/8 and 1/16 and inches and whatever. It's a tiny thin line. So I've got that, and I'm now going to just darken up the edges where it's white. I do it to begin with just with a colour pencil, but then I decide to get out some sepia ink and I literally just take the paintbrush around the edges. It also just adds a bit of dimension when I do it on the hole in the centre, because I darken around the edges, around the kind of frame of the circle, just a little bit as well. I don't care that there's little tags of paper sticking there, because this is not about making something perfectly smooth. If it looks rugged, I'm quite happy with that. doing it from both sides, and you'll see in a moment that, you know, I do just kind of go right round it. Here I am taking the cutout bit, going round it as well. Okay, so again, I spared you the detail of watching that all the way through. So picking up some of the ink, and I think this is where I probably just go a bit wider around it. I think it's only filling in the inside of the hole there because I'm really trying to get it around that edge well. And funnily enough, I was looking at the way that the colour on the underpaper, the colour it had taken on, because I think there was some of that shimmering blue there, and the sepia on top of that provided quite an interesting colour. So I'm now just going to take the little piece in the middle and I'm going to put some holes into this. Now, I don't mind if these holes are exact spacing apart, but I'm going to put, I think it's roughly 8 holes I put in it. Easy way to do that is top, bottom, the 2 sides, and then in between the 4 that's there. So, yep, just doing that. It does push through some little white bits. Again, I don't mind, I will fill those in at the end. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to set that just loosely within the bigger bit. I'm not looking for it to match up as to where it came out before, but I do want to match it slightly with the holes that I'm going to put into this. But again, I'm going to do 8 holes, so I'm going to use that centre piece roughly as a guide for the 8 holes. So again, I just kind of do top and bottom. I think, I can't remember if I do the 2 sides, but it's same principle, top, bottom, 2 sides, and then holes in between, but just so that they're broadly in line with that centre piece. And sorry, it's quite difficult to show this without, you know, my kind of entire hand being in there. It was slipping a little bit, so I try and manoeuvre it back into position, but it will be what it will be. Okay, so I just, where they've not fully gone through, I just go back and push them through a little bit. So I've now got this embroidery thread, or you might call it embroidery floss. It is a kind of greenish turquoise colour. I was just really feeling turquoise this week. I cut a piece off. I don't split it into threads. I don't know how many threads in the strands. Is it 5 or something? I just always leave as is, because any time I've tried to split into the individual strands before, it just ends up in a big knot. So, but I quite like the thread thick and kind of chunky anyway. So I realise here I start it off wrong, because what I actually want to do is to have the centre piece round the other way. So I'm just leaving this in so you can see. Sometimes you've just got to think things through, and I'm looking at this and then I'm going, no, that's not quite what I wanted. It takes me a few seconds or a minute to realise. I've realised now, so I have to take the thread out the needle, which is a bit of a pain because it took me ages to thread it in the first place. I'm going to try and get one of these little things that you put through the eye of the needle and then you can thread it easier. I did have one, but I think, as I've said before, I'm sometimes a little bit heavy-handed, and I think I pulled the metal bit right out the holder, so I don't think it lasted me 2 shots. So I must get one. Anyway, I've turned that round, realising that I'd done it wrong. It's possibly even in a different position, I don't know. You'll see me just moving it about there. It doesn't matter, really. So now I've got the task of threading the needle again. Of course I cut that out because that probably took me 10 minutes. And here we go again. So I threaded it from the back on the main bit of the page, and then I've just gone through that bit there. Now I don't want to pull it too tight because I want this to kind of sit centrally. So again, sorry you don't see it all on camera. I find it really difficult to film sewing on camera. I am trying to keep as much on screen as I possibly can, but sometimes I've just got to look at it that little bit closer. So you'll see, just giving it a gentle pull. I also don't want to pull it too hard because the last thing I want to do is to rip it. If it ripped, you know, I would just do something different. It's not the end of the world by any means, it's just a bit of paper. So just holding it there and just literally working my way round all the holes. I think that was me just trying to tighten that first one just ever so slightly because I didn't want to get to the end and then have to go round them all again. I'm going to leave this in. It might be a bit tedious, I don't know, but I really just want you to see how I did it in case, you know, you wanted to try something like this. So not looking for the size of these kind of, I don't know that you can call it a stitch, but I'm sure you know what I mean. I keep dropping the needle. All fingers and, what's that phrase? It can't be all fingers and thumbs, is it? I don't know. Okay, and just working my way around. Does get there eventually. Jabbed myself a few times, of course. You know, I try to keep it in camera. And to keep it in camera, I have to look at the kind of viewing screen bit, and then when I do that, I jab myself. Nothing serious though. And we're just about there. Knots getting the thread as I go round, of course. You know, I look at that, I think, how did that happen? Too long a bit of thread, I guess, but I'd rather that than running out. Go on, you're getting there, nearly there. Nearly there, nearly there. Come on, get a move on. I hope you're still here and watching. As I say, I'm leaving it in because I think there's nothing more frustrating than watching a video where someone shortens something so much that you actually miss out on the key elements. There again, you could look at this and say, well, you might not want to do anything like this anyway. I think I'm rambling a bit, just trying to fill in the gaps here. But I have to say, in my own defence, I think that thread goes really nicely with the background, and I think it goes on both. So we've got that done, and all I'm going to do now is a kind of simple knot. I say simple because the fingers on my left hand, the hand that I broke my wrist on, don't work the same as they used to. Not for fine detail things like this. I struggle to kind of, well, I'm struggling with both hands here, to be honest, but that's because the thread was that short there. Woohoo, it's done. So I'll just trim this off. And there we have it. And I like that. Now, what is it? I have no idea. But when I put the word down that was in my mind this week, I thought, yeah, I kind of get this. So I'm just taking the sepia pencil and just going around those little white pencil bits. So it was just the bits where I'd punched the holes, where the white was poking through. So just using the sepia just to try and disguise them a little bit. Oh, that was an effort. Now I've got this bit and I'm thinking, yeah, I think I want to use this bit as well. So looking at where I'll place it, think about a couple of things. Think about what's way I want it up. I think off camera I maybe then looked at oh no, I did it on camera, there we go. So looking at last week's and looking at just how they might join up. If I was just gluing them together, I might do something different. I don't know at this stage. Again, no right way or wrong way. But of course I wanted to make my mind up before I stamp my word on. Right, so I think that's it. I've decided that way is up. So I'm now going to get my word stamps out. Oh no, I'm still thinking about this bit, where I want it to go. Top, bottom, in between. In the end I decide on something entirely different. Funny how small things like this. Yeah, I think I was thinking there, will I put my word in the inside? If I'd done that, then I couldn't use my stamps. I'm now at the top and I'm thinking, ooh, now then, I could fold it over and have a bit on each side. Why? Just because I can, and just because I thought, yeah, I like that. So I'm now going to take the art glitter glue. I've never known, and I don't know if I said this before, I've never known why they call it art glitter, because I thought it was going to be a glue, not when I bought it, because I'd already seen other people use it, but I thought, oh, it must be a glue that has glitter in it, so I never bought it. I'm actually pleased, despite the fact it was very expensive here, I'm actually pleased I bought it because I do like that little nozzle bit you can get on it, and I do like I think it's a very good glue. It doesn't do for everything, but I do like it, and I will probably replace it when the time comes. So looking now at where I'm going to stamp my word, and this week I actually show you the stamping of it. Most weeks I don't bother. So I'm going to use the Stays On in jet black. I'm wondering if how well it'll stick to the shiny surface. I put all my stamps back in the box, and I tell you, I'm going to get another box for them because they go in so tight. There is no gap at all, and pulling them out and getting them all back in is an absolute pain at times. Anyway, I've looked them out. Now usually, what I'm saying here is usually when I'm stamping, I try not to get the edge of the stamp on it. This week I'm deliberately going to try and get the edge, so that kind of blocky bit that goes around it. So you see I was moving it about a little bit to get the blocky effect. I also didn't want it to sit bang on centre, so I didn't want the bit at the top to be in line with the main focal feature, to be in line with the words. I wanted them to be across a little bit, and you'll see that I don't try and put all the letters in a straight line. I like to move them up and down a bit. And I like how the double O of look kind of mirrors the shape in the centre. And I suppose for me, having my cup of coffee, I suppose the word look for me was about looking through this, and it's looking through it from this side and through it from the other side. So that's where, although I hadn't thought about it this way, that's where my word this week started to make a bit of sense to me, that sometimes it's about having to look through things to see to the other side. It's not always a clear view that we get. It's sometimes, a little obscured by something. That's my translation or interpretation of it, but others might look at it differently. So I used a Stabilo oil there, just trying to darken up that bit, just to add a wee bit of a feature to that. I go around the outside of this. I felt this needed to be just darkened a little bit, not too much. I think I take it out a little bit. Didn't necessarily want it to go over the word there, but pulling it out, and again interested at how the Stabilo all looks on top of that. Dabbing it a little. Taking it out a bit again. It doesn't need to be a perfect circle around here. Grunges it up a little bit more, but there's still that brightness of the card underneath. Still seeing the orange, seeing the turquoise, and seeing the kind of colour that the kind of blue shimmering ink caused, that kind of pink. Just doing a little bit on the back to make it stand out as well. So I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. I will hopefully be back at the weekend with part 8 and then some additional videos going forward after that. So hopefully a Wednesday and then either the Saturday or Sunday. So thanks so much for watching. Do take care. Bye for now.